Welcome to Nerdities. Bitches.
No topic too absurd, no statement too asinine, no question too interesting. That's right, it's a Nerdities interview show. I, as ever, am Mike. That is
Justin.
He is Joe. And our guest tonight, writer, author extraordinaire on there, Phoebe Xavier. Greetings.
Hi guys, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. So, the most recent book you're working on is Volume 3 of Moon 13, or you guys have that finished and it's kickstarting currently, right?
Yes, 13th Moon is kickstarting right now. It just went live a few hours ago. It is the third time that we tried to kickstart one of these volumes, and it is the latest thing that I put out, yes, absolutely. We're live right now. You can get our older books. We make a lot of comic books, and I have a short story collection for sale at the same place. Our books are available at indieplanet.com/123go.
So, 13th Moon is 6 different stories by 6 different writer-artist combos, right?
That is correct. It's over the course of the 3 volumes. One year it was 7 stories, one year it was 5 stories, and then this year it's 6 stories.
Okay.
And it is a variety of different teams. Some of these writers and artists have appeared in previous volumes, and some of them, this is their first appearance.
It was kind of hard to get a gauge on anything that might connect them all. Is there any one similar thing about them that drops them into the same kind of anthology, or is it just that they are so random that you can put them together?
Horror. They're all horror stories. The first 2 are comedy horror, but it's all horror stories. In the first volume, I did a sci-fi story, but even that was like an emotional horror story. And yeah, there are 2 comedy horrors in this volume, and previously we only had the one, which was Lucy and the Dewbringer's first appearance in volume number 1. And they're back in volume number 3, and they are a heavy metal band fronted by Lucy, who is a daughter of the devil. And in volume 1, she broke out of hell and joined a metal band in New Jersey. So here in volume 2, they're about to go on tour and play some metal music across the Northeast.
Guessing you're from Jersey as well?
I was born there, yes.
Don't currently live there, though? Or should I say here? Because
no,
all 3 of us are from Jersey.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's go Devils. Over in Prague at the moment. But yeah, I was born in New Jersey, and then we moved to Bucks County, if you know where that is, in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It's right across the river from Trenton.
Yeah.
So yeah, I grew up in Bucks County.
Okay, I think we should jump into these questions first before the rest of the comic book questions. Pizza stuff. Can we do the pizza questions now?
Yeah, do the pizza questions now.
What?
Yeah, so
okay.
Every guest we have on, we usually towards the end we discuss pizza because everybody's from different areas. But you're from the area, so
Yes.
the unsung praises of
What's the pizza in the area? Yeah, I mean, I remember as a high schooler when we would get to go down to South Street and maybe have a 12-pack as teenagers and get a little bit buzzed and buy huge $3 slice of pizza down on South Street, which is probably at the time the best pizza in Philly, maybe. But I've also spent a lot of time in New York City, and I think probably my money is on New York pizza. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have a particular anything that I claim.
I think what's important, though, is everybody does have an emotional connection to pizza.
Yeah.
We're finding that out more and more. Maybe
Okay. Well, I've been living. I've been cutting carbs out of my diet the last couple of years, so I don't really eat pizza that much. But what I do is sometimes is I buy the cauliflower-based crusty, and that one's pretty good for a low-carb option.
If Justin's a cook and a chef, I should say,
Thank
and
you.
He's told me that I'm having cauliflower pizza. I probably would have been better that you tried to sneak it by me, because I would go in knowing that's what it is, and it's still like, all right, this is decent, but I had a low bar to begin with.
It was good though. It's solid.
Good.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I enjoy it. It is a good way to still get to your pizza fix.
Yeah.
And
I worked in a restaurant in Vermont a year ago, and I would make vegan pizza because she was a completely vegan restaurant. So I would make that from scratch, the dough from scratch, that fake cheese on it, and it was, to me, kind of gross, but yeah, vegan pizza for a while.
sometimes you can find someone who's got a good vegan pizza. Sometimes it is hard. The cheese is the killer of the whole thing.
One of the other
The sauce was great, but the fake cheeses are not good.
No, they're not. They're not great.
How could you even? I understand you could try to eat it, but I don't know how you could enjoy. Anyone could enjoy eating it. It's just. I guess I'm basic. I'm not enlightened enough. I couldn't. I'm just a savage.
I'm sure you have tastes in certain things that other people don't like, but whatever.
I know I've got taste. Not even a question there. One of the other pieces you've worked on, your Viking historical piece. I only saw a few images from that, but I can't help but wonder, what age group is that aimed at? Because it seems very informative, kind of like high school age, but then at the same time, it looks like it could be a bit advanced reading too.
I mean, I would say, like, if you can read, it's a safe book because there isn't any, like, cursing, there isn't any graphic violence, there isn't any nudity. It is filled with a lot of historical factoids, also archaeological facts. So I would say that it's probably ages like 10 and up. If you're literate enough to understand it, then it's definitely not a mature audience's thing.
With 13th Moon, do you get the opportunity to vet artists, or you guys kind of put together through a process? Like, is this the same artist carrying through on all three volumes?
Well, Babe Ron has done the cover for first three, and I'm been fortunate enough to have that continuity going on. Also, the campaign on Kickstarter is under his name, under his bank account. He is the cover artist, and he both wrote and drew the first story about Lucy and the Doombringers. I got him to do, I think I found it right here. I got him to do the cover for Volume 2 as well. Last year, he didn't do a story at all inside, but for the continuity of having the same artist, I did hire him to do the cover last year, or 2 years ago. And that's the pace at which we're putting them out right now, basically. Number 1 came out in 2020. The other one came out like 2.5 years later. And this one is now 4 years later.
Is it like herding cats trying to get that many artist-writer combos to get their stuff together?
Yeah, sometimes. Absolutely. I would say that these particular books, 13th Moon, that it's been a little bit better because I've mostly been working with teams or artists that I already knew and knew the level of reliability I was dealing with. The turnaround time I would be dealing with, stuff like that. However, other books have taken me like sometimes 2-3 years on something that I set out to do long ago just because certain artists disappear for a month or two. I have had a team ghost me out of the Philippines that they did 2/3 of the story. 4 pages of it were colored, and they didn't color the last 2 pages. And it went on for 4 or 5 years. That I had to finally hire another colorist that could emulate their style so that it would have like a smooth flow throughout the whole story. So yeah, there are definitely stumbling blocks sometimes in getting an indie book out quickly with the artists that I work with. The random variety of artists I work with.
Yearly schedule sounds like a good idea. That definitely gives yourself enough leeway to deal with those hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
Was, like you were talking about the variety of stories before, was artistic variety a mandate going into it, or was that just like a happy coincidence?
No, I think that's something that I was definitely looking for. What I look for first in an artist is like, do I like the art? Would I want to see any story in that artist's style? And after that, can I afford to work with this person? And then, so if those two hurdles are cleared, then if it's not me that's the writer, then the writer that I'm assigning to that artist, do they like the art? That would be the third hurdle I would see.
Let's see. Anybody else have one? I was brain farting there for a hot second.
Saw that.
Yeah.
Ooh, Joe, save me.
So I see you're editing and chief editor of the 123 Go publications. Can you tell us more about that? I see you have a lot of books on there.
Thank you. If that's meant to be like a compliment. So I guess about 8 years ago, thank you. 8 years ago, I put out Sidereal Apogee number 1 and 2, and then Trouble number 1 shortly thereafter. I used to do music, and I was a 40-year-old underground rap artist, hip-hop artist. And I realized that, it's okay to give up on that dream, that childhood dream of being a rap superstar, and invest my creative energies in something else that I've loved since childhood, which is comic books. So in the last decade, I've shifted my creative focus to writing and writing comic books specifically. And 123 Go is just the name of the brand that I came up with. The logo I also designed myself. It's just a simple font, kind of stylized. And the phrase itself comes from the Facebook group that we used to, one of the older Facebook groups that we would organize stories and art for the Sidereal Apogee books. That was kind of my sign off. Would be like, okay, this is what we got to do. This is when we're trying to do it by, and 1, 2, 3, go. Like, go do it. And so that's where the title itself came from. Some of these people that are still part of 1, 2, 3, go, Frederick B. Roseman and Jeffrey Haas have been there basically since the ground floor. So that's why I kind of call myself co-founder of the brand itself. But yeah, I have the first and final say on what actually gets printed. So that's what makes me editor-in-chief. I have other people edit stories sometimes, but like I still have the last pass on if we're gonna put a story in the book. If sometimes my editor will even tell me like that my grammar is like wrong because of punctuation, this or that, and I sometimes have to tell them, okay, this is comic books though. I know you're like got a degree in literature, but this is not literature. This is comic books. So sometimes I'm not going to be as precise as I would be in a narrative fictional story.
You kind of did answer what was going to be my second question, because you did mention your main character in 13th Moon was in a metal band, and I do listen to metal. So I was going to ask if you were a fan of metal.
I am not, but Bayron is the creator of the story in the band. He plays guitar, he plays drums, and he plays piano.
Nice. Mm-hmm. What kind of hip hop did you? Would you say you
Style, Joe. The word
style. Yeah.
Biggest influences would be like A Tribe Called Quest, and then also like a lot of underground stuff. Like, I guess these days most Def and Talib Kweli aren't really underground, but like at the end of the 90s, Raucous was still like an underground thing. I used to be a fan of a lot of the Def Jux artists before LP signed up with Run the Jewels or whatever. So yeah, I don't know, a lot of underground stuff. I've also like met tons of underground or slightly more famous rappers just from doing hip hop so long.
That's really cool.
Are you enjoying a lot of the hip hop that comes out now? Like, I came up as like a teen in the 90s when hip hop was very burgeoning. Like, it was becoming rap. It wasn't just hip hop guys being b-boys. It was getting in your face. So like I always joke, like I was a middle-aged white kid in the 90s. Of course I loved rap. Do you think, is there anything that's hitting you like that nowadays, or is there a lot? Because there's always something that's hitting you, no matter what time it is. Is there a lot of stuff hitting you these days? Hip
hop is like the culture, and it's a culture comprised of 4 elements. elements, and that would be b-boying, DJing, MCing, and graffiti. And those 4 elements combined are like the backbone of hip-hop culture. Rap is just one of those 4 elements. But yes, we did get, the 90s did sort of see the commercialization of that act of rapping divorced from the rest of hip-hop culture, and wound up with stuff like Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park or whatever that are rap rock bands or whatever. And then, I think by the last 10, 15 years, so much rap music doesn't really have anything to do with that original culture of creativity and celebrating community. But as far as what I like right now, artists that I will still listen to, I'm still a loyal Rob Zonik fan. I listen to a couple lady rappers. I listen to Lekele 47, Velva Wonder. K-Flay doesn't really rap as much anymore, but I like K-Flay. But also a couple ladies overseas. Chan Mina, who is like a Korean-Japanese rapper. She's freaking amazing. And the other one overseas, Little Sims from the UK. She's pretty coconuts. There's I just find so much modern rap to be totally crap. And I'm sure that if I gave certain things a chance, like maybe here or there would be some really great songs. Oh, like I think Wu-Tang just dropped a new song with featuring Ludacris, Redman, Method Man, or something like that. Like that just dropped last week. That was pretty dope.
Listen to.
But but in general, like if it's not like Q-Tip on a track or some old school rappers like Redman and Ludacris, I'm probably not giving that track a chance.
Yeah, with the whole mumble flow, when that came in and took over, it really hurt to see that there was... It's hard enough to understand lyrics in most songs, but when it's being presented like that, with so little heart, is what it felt like. It was like soul-crushing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and that's it. Didn't all that mumble rap come from a lot of like SoundCloud freaking artists, like people that really would have had no other exposure except for they loaded up their lo-fi tracks up onto SoundCloud. It's kind of like 15 years ago, people getting famous on MySpace or whatever. I don't know.
There is.
I don't know where Tina Tequila is these days.
That would be the Hawk-Tua girl. Is the new Tila Tequila?
Yes, she's the modern version. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Although I currently have a little more respect for her than Tila Tequila. All she's done is like make a podcast out of it. Not.
She gave a lot of money.
She
gave a lot of money to like animal shelters.
Capitalizing on that. Good for her.
Good for her.
I heard she's got the 3rd biggest podcast on like Spotify right now.
It's pretty funny.
That's crazy.
For now?
That is crazy.
Tag for now on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned rap didn't pan out and you went to Second Love and comics. What has been your like favorites? Where do you stand? Are you like?
What do you mean, favorite like comic book or?
Yeah, like are you with the big boys? Are you DC? Are you Marvel? Are you more like the independent scene?
Totally independent. And yeah, not really making like huge amounts of money off of it. I put more money into it than I make out of it.
Story of our
comic
life.
Books are. Yeah, I mean, I do comic books because I love doing comic books. Because creativity, I'm inspired to do creative stuff. If I had more money, I'd put out twice as many books. But I do the best that I can with the meager budget that I have.
Go, Joe.
So I'm looking at your catalog, and one that stuck out is this superliminal latency. You put out a 288-page book. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sure.
That's a feat.
Thank you. It's a series of 17 short stories, the first of which was written in 2003. The most recent of which was like 2018 or 19. So I think it was during the first COVID lockdown that I was like, hey, if we're all going to die in 6 months, let me publish all these stories that I've written. So I tried editing it myself at first, and that did not really work out because it's really hard to edit your own like wordy, cerebral, written narrative stuff. Your eyes kind of just skip right over mistakes you've read 15 times because you and your mind are kind of filling in something like what's missing or whatever.
Writing highway hypnosis.
So I suppose I don't know exactly what that phenomenon is.
Oh, highway hypnosis
is
is when you're driving, you get from point A to point B with almost no effort. It's basically just muscle memory, and it's one of the scariest things you'll go through.
Okay.
You'll get to your destination and be like, I didn't make an actual decision in that process. I was thinking about 10 different things and not about the road, and I got there. Or the extreme highway hypnosis where you're on a long trip and the actual highway just puts you out.
Zones you out, yeah. That can be difficult, yeah. I have done a lot of cross-country driving, and I would advise everyone, if you're getting tired, if you hit the shoulder even just a little bit, it's time to pull over and take a nap. Right? Yeah.
If you feel comfortable, because the scariest place I ever fell asleep was the rest stop just south of the border in South Carolina. Because I was going to stay at south of the border. I was going to pitch a tent there, and I was like, wait a minute, this is south of the border. This is scary, but I got to sleep. Then we get like 2 hours near this sheriff station, and even that was scary.
I remember I've only been to that south of the border place once, and I bought a gun holster and something else. I forget what. Something else silly souvenir kind of wise. But no, we didn't feel unsafe there at all. Oh, we probably bought fireworks. But yeah.
Was it during the day?
Even
It was definitely during the day. If you've never seen that place at night, don't go to that place at night.
It was 15 years ago, so I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, those memories fade.
It is South Carolina, which is its own level of scariness, but yeah.
Yeah. It's why I only visit those places on a major thoroughfare. And even then, it's probably too fast because the last place I got a speeding ticket was Georgia. I just try and get through that. Yeah. Now that was like 15 years ago. I've been a good boy since then. Well, I haven't gotten caught since then.
There you go.
So I'm getting questions, and then they're poofing out of my head. Yeah.
Anyways.
It's not the complete story of my life.
Down, Mike.
Yeah. I usually do.
So are you more of like a horror comic fan as opposed to like or are you just everything?
Yeah. No, not really. I mean, growing up, X-Men was probably the book that I collected the most. X-Men and Alpha Flight. I used to own the entire Volume 1 of Alpha Flight. I think it was 132 issues. But yeah, so I'm into superhero stuff too, but I don't really buy or collect comic books anymore. I can read some online if I want to. More than anything, I read the comic books of other indie creators, people that I might work with or network with. If something absolutely mind-blowing is going on in the X-Men, I might read it online. But for the most part, I haven't even read that book in like almost 20 years because after the movies came out and they made those stupid new versions of the team dressed in black leather or whatever, that kind of like turned me off from the X-Men for a while.
I gotta say, if you have any interest in getting back into that, like just specifically the X-Men, what they've done with them over the last few years has been some incredible stuff. Like you probably have a Comixology account or something, right?
I don't, but I do not. But are you talking about the Krakoa stuff?
Yeah. Did you dip into the Krakoa stuff at all?
So there's this one YouTube channel that does like summaries of and origins of like Marvel characters, and I did watch like an hour-long summarization of the Krakoa stuff, and some of the artwork looked really amazing. But the overall, from where they started to where they ended, I felt like it was it was almost as senseless as Mandalorian season 1 and season 2.
I wouldn't call it senseless. I would call it a bit bloated at times, as like every major Marvel event is. But it was also more than a little convoluted, because Jonathan Hickman, great writer, but like high concept, beyond high concept notions that like you have to look up terminology in order to understand the concept he's going for. And it's not something you expect from a mainstream book. Like he was going for some big swings there, and I think just handed him off to other people that may or may not have known exactly what he was going for. It ended in a weird place. And that's always the weird thing for me about like big companies like Marvel and DC. You can have these huge events and you can put these characters through the ringer, but when it's all said and done, you gotta get them out looking as fresh as they did when they came in. And
didn't they make every mutant immortal? Like, wasn't that for like several years? If you were a mutant, you could get resurrected by Krakoa.
Yeah, which, you know, you go into it knowing this isn't going to last. This is like a blip in time, but how can they play with it? And they played with it in a lot of fun ways, and I think that was the best part of the whole story. That and the idea of nationality that the mutants were creating by literally becoming their own island state. They were playing with a lot of geopolitical concept with them versus the rest of the world, them plus the rest of the world. And then you have, even in like the real world that we live in, that would be crazy enough if some island just popped up and normal people started living there, much less people with crazy powers. And then you've got countries like Latveria and Wakanda, all these different things interacting, made for a great time.
But didn't the X-Men already do that in the 90s with Genosha? They did their own island?
Not, that one was crazy because it was formerly a mutant-hating island where a handful of them got together and were like, no, screw that, we'll take this place over. There's a big difference, I think, between that and Professor X and Magneto getting together and saying, we're going to take over. We're literally going to take over all the mutants. It was them being gutsy and stupid. And that's what plays out throughout the entire thing, too. The hubris of these two guys blowing up not just in their face, but the faces of all the people they care about. It was a lot. I don't recommend you going if you don't have time, but it was interesting.
And, but again, that whole Professor Magneto being the worst of the worst or whatever, isn't that onslaught? Like, haven't we known this since the 90s also?
Yeah, it's kind of a different way to play out. Anytime the two are together, a disaster is going to happen. There was this one thing I saw recently, I saved and I saw again recently, there's only 10 X-Men plots, and 7 of them involve aliens screwing with Scott Summers. So yeah, there's a lot of rinse with them.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
no doubt.
So I think we're going to have to take it in for a landing. We got the other guys that are usually on our show. What, you got another one, Joe?
I got one more question.
Okay.
Phoebe, what's next on your horizon?
Smart question.
Yep, no worries. Trouble number 2 is something I'm definitely trying to work on next. I have a couple of stories already for 13th Moon Volume 4, but that is going to be spaced out over 2 years, so that's no rush. I'm writing a couple of short stories as well that I now have, like, contests that I'm trying to submit them in, so I have deadlines, imaginary deadlines at least, if I try to get my stories printed and by someone else. Comic book wise, I don't think we're putting out any more Gunmetal Black Ops this year or any more. We might put out Sidereal Apogee number 7. Okay, so that might actually come out in 2025, and but yeah, that might be the only comic book that I seriously put out. And then Trouble number 2 could be done in 2025, but I'm not absolutely certain. Anybody that's watching, please go check out the Kickstarter, sign up for notifications, follow the project if you don't have a couple of dollars to chip in. It'll help us in the algorithms or whatnot. And I think we activated the project 2 hours ago and made like $60 in the first 2 hours out of 1,300. So we're moving along.
Every drop in the bucket counts. 13th Moon, Volume 3, Kickstarter, folks, get it out there. Phoebe Xavier, thank you for your time. We're not going to do the usual spiel at the end, but we'll just let you know, as we usually do. Fuck bye. Wow, we didn't curse at all this episode.
No, we didn't.
That's the first time there was swearing.
Fucking hey. All right, fuck bye.
Fuck bye.
Peace. Thanks for having me. You guys have a good night.
Because of the end of civilization, the Clamp Cable Network now leaves the air. We hope you have enjoyed our programming, but more importantly, we hope you have enjoyed life.